Happiness. Today would be Monday, October 13th, and I'm trying not to break the iPad because we'll see how much of the class gets recorded because it has deep issues. Yay, issues. Alright, and there. Let's see, blah blah, information up there. As far as irony goes, irony is where you have the opposite of the expected result. And we'll go through and show you guys some examples here in a moment to try and help you out. I use verbal irony in class quite a bit, where you say one thing, but you mean the opposite of it. Do you know what a good example of verbal irony is, where you tell someone what you mean the opposite of what you're saying? Mac Ewan.
Sarcasm.
Way to go, Einstein. Would be an example where you say do you really mean that? Because you mean the opposite of what you're trying to say. Yes. Is already gone.
Thank you.
Welcome. And so that sarcasm is an example of verbal irony, where you mean the opposite of what you're saying. So here, the blue part, we're going to do a little quick irony training. This does not necessarily create irony, but it gets you moving in the right direction. For what a fireman does, all together, what does a fireman do? Yeah, something about putting out fires. The opposite of that, I put down catches on fire.
I put his house burned down.
You can put a house burning down. All of those, as long as you're doing the opposite of it, might not be ironic, but at least you're moving in the right direction. What a DARE officer does.
Teaches kids not to do drugs.
Yeah, don't do drugs. The opposite of that?
Doing drugs.
Yeah, they get like a DUI, the driving under the influence, or if you catch them smoking a cigarette out back of the school or like that, they're like, you said drugs were bad. Yeah, for you. And so that'd be an example of irony. What a dentist does. What does a dentist do? There you go. Prevents cavities, cleans teeth. The opposite of that, I went for has bad teeth. You know, got a big old janky smile kind of thing going on.
Yeah.
Along those lines. What a normal English teacher does.
Teaches.
English is
Grammar.
good job. Words of some kind. I put teaches words. For the opposite, I put down misspells own name. So that would be an example of the same idea. One of the best ways to teach irony is to go through and give you a whole bunch of examples of irony. So we're going to go through and try to give you a whole bunch of examples. Getting dressed today, I realized that my tie was a perfect example of irony. It was not intended, it just worked out that way. When I was putting it on, it has a little tag that tells you where it was made. And where do you think my America tie was made?
China.
Oh, scary that you know it so well. If it was made in America, that's what you would hope for, but my Made in America tie was made in China. The Made in China sticker, well, I had an example that went along with that before I happened to have this tie on today. But it was 4th of July parade with my daughters. We were watching the parade go by, and they were handing out things from the kids. And the thing that they handed to my daughter was ironic, because it had a Made in China sticker on it. Any idea what they would have handed to us that would be ironic? Yeah, it was a little American flag that you could wave back and forth, and they all had little Made in China stickers that were on them. And so I thought that was rather ironic. And of course, you can do research and find out that a lot of times the sticker factories that make the Made in China stickers, Mexico. And so there you have the irony of the fact that the Made in China sticker you would think would be made in China, but it's not. It's made in another country. Made in Mexico sticker on the Made in China sticker. I know, but the Made in Mexico stickers are made in Taiwan. So, just kidding. It's just like there's so many levels, it gets deeper. If we find out the CEO or the president of Chevrolet
Drives a Toyota.
nice one, drives a Toyota, or is the great-grandson of Henry Ford or something like that, would be an example of irony, the opposite of what you're expecting. If we find out that they're requiring now all the employees of Microsoft to use...
Internet Explorer.
There you go. Internet Explorer is Microsoft, but a good try. But iPads or iPhones or something like that would be an example of irony. They're like, well, they're just more reliable. That'd be ironic. Actual things, I had a student named both Joy and a student named Delight. And they were ironic, and I pointed out to them, and it didn't necessarily go well. Why were these two girls examples of irony? Yeah, Delight was actually a bully that got written up quite a bit, and then Joy was just grumpy and never smiled at me. And in class, I was able to use, I didn't have them up here at the time, because that would have been kind of weird. But when we were doing irony, and I was like, and Delight, she's an example of irony. And the class was like, oh, and Delight goes, what? And they're like, well, they all yeah, exactly. Good job, Delight. Like, I don't get it. And I'm like, you're just fun. Yeah, that's why I charge you points for putting your feet up there, dear. I know. Losing so many points so quickly, aren't we? Yeah, just go ahead and leave it there. That way we just remind me to charge you points later. MTV. What does MTV stand for?
Music.
Why is MTV an example of irony?
Because it doesn't play music.
Nicely done. Now they have all kinds of horrible TV shows, but at one time they were all about music. So the fact that the music television station doesn't show anything like that. Do you guys know what an atheist is?
Yes.
An atheist is someone who...
Doesn't believe in God.
And I had a student who was an atheist, and they wore something that I had to point out what they were wearing was ironic. I thought it was a pretty design. Yeah, they were wearing a cross. I had to point out the fact that that kind of went against
Funny.
it. So, yeah, a little on the
How
ironic
are they
side.
wearing the cross? Like a necklace?
Yeah. Why would this be an example of irony? The not working on Labor Day. Victor?
Because labor is like working.
Yeah. It's National Work Day, and we celebrate National Work Day by sitting around and not
working.
That would be an example of irony. I have talky kids who lose lots of points in class for talking, and oftentimes it's the speech unit that seems to freak them out the most. And every year I point out the irony of the fact that the kids who seem to complain the most about speeches are the ones who talk the most during class. I don't know, I just like when everyone stares at me when I talk. How weird. Actual example, this one once again, I was driving down the road and I pulled up behind a car, and they had a drive carefully sticker on the back of it, but the drive carefully sticker, it had the be aware, motorcycles are everywhere, drive carefully, but the back end of the car had been smashed because someone had hit it, and I couldn't figure out what the sticker was, so I kept trying to get like closer and closer as I was driving to try and figure out what kind of sticker it was, and I figured out it was a drive carefully, and I was like, ironic if I run into them. Because I was trying to find a drive carefully sticker, but apparently someone already had. And I just put a random picture of a car up there. Do you guys know what a phobia is?
Nope.
Oh, yeah.
Fear. Well, if we find out that the president of an airline has a phobia, there you go. If they had a fear of heights, that would be rather ironic, because that would be the one thing you would not expect. We had a teacher at our school named Mrs. Music.
She was an art teacher.
She was a science teacher, but nicely done. And so and apparently she could not sing, according to her. I never heard her, but she said, I can't sing. I'm like, oh, it's ironic. She's like, ironic what? I pulled up behind a car leaving Walmart, and they had an I Heart Kids thing in the back window, those little yellow rectangle things that hang in the window. And as I drove up next to them, there was a mom and dad in the front seat who were smoking cigarettes, and all the windows were up, and there were two little kids in the back seat with like their little hands pressed against like the window, like, ah! And I was like, oh, that's ironic. You say I love kids, but I think you mean you love killing kids. And I was going to take a picture of them, but apparently that's creepy. If you pull up next to a car and just put your phone and turn to them and start taking pictures, because they gave me a really dirty look, so I didn't get a very good picture. So just imagine creepy people killing children. If you find out the designer of the Xbox, who
Plays PlayStation.
there you go, plays PlayStation all the time. On this one, it's a picture that has irony in it. My question is, why would this be an example of irony, Brayden?
Because it's a video on how to train your dog to like stop eating things up and it's eaten by a dog.
Nice, well done. And the dog chewed it up. This would be fireworks called American Freedom.
Made in China.
There you go. And so the fact that it's called, fireworks made in China, that's not ironic. The fact that they labeled theirs American Freedom and it's made in China, that would probably be slightly ironic.
Battery powered, battery
Battery's not included.
Wires, batteries, to charge your batteries. And of course, batteries not included.
Oh, I get it.
Whoa.
Why would a fire truck be ironic in this case?
Because it's on fire.
Yeah, they're supposed to put out fires. You guys know what plagiarism is?
Yes.
If I had a kid that wrote a paper about why you should not plagiarize, what would be ironic?
Plagiarize.
Nicely done. So it's a cartoon that says the idea that you turn in your paper about why you shouldn't plagiarize, but it's the third time I've seen that paper. That would be an example of irony. I found graffiti, which I couldn't take a good picture of it, but it was someone had written down, "I hate graffiti," and they had written it on the wall. Why would that be ironic? It is graffiti, and so they had written that on there. How about this crayon? Why is our...
Made in Mexico.
Yeah, so it's an American crayon, but it's made in Mexico. This was at a protest rally about people from Mexico coming to America to live. What is our irony here, McEwen?
Because they speak English, but they can't even spell "our" right.
Correct. They have the wrong hour when they're telling people not to come into our country because they can't speak English. The poor hillbillies couldn't speak English themselves. This one takes a bit of it to figure out what the issue is.
Oh, I get it.
Sorry.
It says, today you are 2, and then in the morning it says, not for children under 3 years.
Nice. Yeah, it's for 2-year-olds, so it comes across as ironic. A company I found.
Oh, that's funny.
Sliding door company. And it's a pull door. Mango juice, which says down here, mangoes are a natural source of vitamin A. It is natural mango juice, but you check the back of it, no vitamin A. A little ironic on that one. Last year, I know you guys, never mind. Don't worry about last year. I was going to talk about the song Ironic, but maybe we'll mention that tomorrow. Take off. See you later.